Run, rabbit. Follow sunny day.
Happy holidays.
Wow, jingle, jingle, jingle. Hope you've been naughty or nice.
I hope you
Whatever
guys
you want.
enjoyed our little recast of the surprise episodes this past month.
You know?
Did you know that? I was putting the surprise episodes back up.
Oh, surprise, a little
Bad alert.
woman.
Guys, this is our last episode of the year. This is the last yap of the year. You gonna miss us? Yeah.
Have you ever thought about yearning for what you once was? Having what you can't have? Think about
Yeah,
it
because like I
over
said,
the holiday.
yeah, think about us. Because like I said at the end of last episode, we're doing like a 2-week siesta after this. But we'll be watching whichever movie you guys have been voting on. I don't know yet. And we'll be doing a little movie recap for you guys in January. It has a little fun twist before we get back to the historical dolls. But
Guys, and pick
I
a
want,
good one. Pick a
yeah,
good movie.
don't pick
Don't
Molly.
don't pick from your heart. Pick from which one will be the best for us to enjoy.
Yeah.
So think with that brain. Don't think with like your personal favorite.
Pick with like the letterboxd reviews, you know?
Yeah, like write something really compelling in the poll comments. Like pitch it, like solidify it. Really be
Yeah.
like, you guys love to comment about the girls that you love, and so I know. But like when you're picking the movie, pick with like, what will we like the best? You guys
Yeah.
listen. You should know by now. Know us
It's a,
intimately.
it's a season of giving. Really use that parasocial relationship to your advantage this time.
Yeah, give us the gift of a good movie selection.
But it is kind of crazy because we talked about it a few weeks ago, but it's kind of perfect that we ended all the original girls like the last week of December because we started mid-December last year. So it took us just like a little over. What is your cat doing?
Okay.
She's getting back in there.
Yeah, here's the gag. She's crawling all over that desk, but truly all that shit has been there waiting to be reorganized for like 3 or 4 weeks.
She's just
So, of
looking for
course,
attention now that she knows there's a
of
camera there.
yeah, of course, right now would be the time in which it is most interesting for her to explore.
It's okay. This is more incentive to watch us on YouTube for you.
Yeah, you guys,
Audio
tune
only.
in. Cat incoming. Oh, see, now she's on top of a different box.
She is. There she is.
Anyway,
But yeah, no,
she'll
as
be
I was saying, it took
there.
us like a year and like 2 weeks to kind of wrap up the girls. I think that's kind of cool. So we've done all the. I know some people say it's like the OG like 5, OG 6. I say OG 8 because I came out like as a child when Kit and Kyle were in the repertoire.
In the
or like,
mix.
on. So I guess like I ask you this every single yap, Celia, but like as the first time reader of the original girls, what did you think?
I thought they were interesting. Like I said, it's funny, like, not necessarily having, like, a built-in nostalgia for them, but, like, I certainly, like, knew about a lot of the girls. I feel like I knew I could recognize most of Kit's outfits, which is funny now because her family was really struggling all of those books.
Yeah.
Uh, they're fun. I mean, I think it's one of those things where, like, I'm kind of surprised how difficult it is to get all of those dolls and all the books now. It's
Mhm.
almost like the Pleasant Company doesn't want people's money because low-key,
I
I'm
know, is that
like,
crazy?
I think they're so fun. Like, obviously, I think there's a value in rewriting, and I know we talked about it with, like, Kirsten's books and, like, potentially
Mhm.
that there's ways, you could make Felicity maybe a little bit more, like, modernized, for, like, nowadays times. But I'm kind of shocked that, like, the girls kind of aren't all available in their full way. Like, you can buy the dolls, but you can't buy all their books. But some of you can buy all their books on, like, line, and then some of them
Mhm.
you can only buy, like, the meat. So, I think it's been fun just to kind of figure out, like, okay, like, revisiting them now, I'll be 30 in 2.5 years. It's just, like, kind of crazy to think about, like, how many people still engage with the dolls and then how, like, I feel like, especially with the new girl of the year, they're kinda like, "Please come back. Please come back,
Yeah.
nostalgia collectors."
Well,
We're
it
not gonna
does.
give you back the dolls you guys care about, but we will tease you with lore about them.
Well, that's the kind of thing that I was thinking as well, is that, like, I mean, we are not necessarily doll collectors, of at least that series. You collect other things. Um, but it seems like to me from what we kind of read about, like, we've tried to do our research a little bit, guys. So we are on, like, the American Girl doll Reddit. We, like, see what people are saying, and now our both of our TikTok feeds since we started this are inundated with just doll content.
Yeah.
There's, like, a high demand for kind of access to the costumes or the original, like, girls and the original books and things like that. And honestly, I feel like, and this might be just biased because of the time that I was a kid in and all that stuff, but, like, I feel like that was what Pleasant Company was doing best, that was most unique, was that they weren't doing, like, what Barbie was doing, which was just, like, Barbie, like, and I love Barbies, guys, so, like, don't come at me, but, like, Barbie doctor, Barbie, like, roller skate,
Yeah.
like, Barbie. They were like, "Hey, this is, like, history and a little doll too, and it's a girl who's just like you from a different time period." And I kinda think that, at least for me, is why, like, we're all here and listening, is because we were, like, suppressed, like, young history nerds who, like, wanted to, well, I guess, like, what I'm trying to say is, like, what better way to introduce kids to history than through people like them, you know?
Oh, yeah,
And, like,
100%.
to be like, "Hey, this is Felicity. She's, like, a sassy, like, horse girl, and she lives in the Revolutionary War." And, like, I bet, Celia, if you'd found Felicity as, like, a kid, you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, this girl's so me," you know?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And, like, 'cause I've said in the Kit episodes, that's how I felt about Kit, was I'm like, "Oh, she's tomboy-ish." She's not, like, super
Yeah.
tomboy, but she's kind of tomboy, and she loves to write, and she's, like, interested in books, and I really, like, I started reading a bunch about the Great Depression when I was a kid because of Kit, you know?
Yeah.
And, like, otherwise, if, like, I had been in school and they had just been like, "This is the Great Depression." Okay. I like, we even joked in those episodes, like, the money concepts, like, we only understood them when the American Girl doll books, like, explained them to us as adults.
Yeah, I think it's just like you said, there's a level of access you get through the girls that also, like, I think people want to collect, like, full, like multiple things per, like, girl too, right? Like, the fact that, like,
Mhm.
there's a development, there is, like, a you get to pick the doll that, like, fits your energy and your vibe, and also, like, the historical time that you, like, are most excited about. I feel like there's just, like, a missed mark there, and, like, as adults, like, I know we have people who've commented it too, like, we don't have kids, but we know people who have kids, and, like, there I feel like there's, like, a kind of a missing stopgap of, like, if
Mhm.
I had a niece or if I had, like, a niece or nephew in my life that was really into, yeah, the Great Depression or, like, really into, like, oh, Victorian England vibe, I'd be like, "Okay, I've got the doll for you," like, and I'm gonna get you all the accessories and all that. So I feel like it's kind of like a missed mark now, because I don't know that there is, like, a doll or, like, a toy filling that, like, historical gap, to your point, right
Yeah,
now.
and I think, like, having reread all of them, and we obviously, one of the running jokes we have is, like, Valerie Tripp and stuff like that, and Dan, who does the Kirsten and the Kaya books, who's slightly unhinged. But I
Yeah.
do think, like, they're decently, I wouldn't say, I will say after reading through them again, they're not the best written children's books, but that's because they kind of are, like, funnels for capitalism, I think.
Yeah.
But that
Uh,
being said, they're not poorly written children's books, especially, like, obviously, like, I think we can both agree that Addie's were the best written of the
oh,
series of,
yeah,
like,
100%.
serieses. But, like, I don't know, and obviously, like, again, we don't have kids, so I'm not really sure what's out there, but I think, like, I think what the books do a really good job of is, like, kind of putting situations, some extraordinary situations because you want drama, but some, like, ordinary situations that girls can relate to in, like, a historical context, like Ruthie and Kit's fight about, like, who has, like, enough money to do what they wanna do for Christmas, or even,
Yeah.
like, honestly, nowadays, like, you think about, like, Felicity, like, and Elizabeth, it's like, what if, like, your best friend's parent, like, you're a kid and, your parents are, like, Democrats, and your best friend's parents are, like, MAGA, and their parents don't get along at all, and, like,
Yep.
kind of that kind of difference in political ideals that, like, kids have to, like, like, somehow navigate, you know?
Yeah.
And I think, like, there's something really interesting about those books for children and kind of creating those, like, topics, and one thing I kinda wanted to talk about a little bit was I think it's really interesting how the American Girl doll books they, like, shy away, obviously, from a lot of, like, the really heavy issues and things, but they do make you think about things. Like, they don't
Yeah.
discourage the thought about the heavy thing, they just don't explicitly say the heavy thing sometimes. 'Cause I mean, anyone who's listened to more than 3 episodes of this knows we go on, like, a political or, like, religious rant at least once a series. And I think that's kind of interesting because it's like there's enough of a presence there that it's obviously made us as adult women think about that stuff on a deeper level. It's not like completely like rose-colored glasses history. Like, I think the most egregious example of them being really like whitewashed or not stating things explicitly is like Felicity and the manservant and the maidservant, you know?
Yes.
But other than that, I think they do a pretty good job of like kind of teaching you the history and letting you come to a conclusion about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think even we've talked about it. And I know we joked on some of them, but even the peeks into the past, like, aren't necessarily obviously, they're only, like, 3 to 4 pages, right? So you can only fit so much
Mhm.
information into them, but adding that additional historical context, I think, too, when the book might not come right and be like, slavery was this way for Felicity. But in the peeks into the past, it would at least address that, like, yes, her grandfather was an owner of a plantation, and this is what a plantation would like look like and operate as. And so I think giving that additional context too, like, I don't know, I think there's just a deeper way that the books they don't treat you like you're dumb. If that
Yeah.
like they're not the best written children's books ever, but I think to your point, there is a capitalism angle. I gotta get you to like the doll. I gotta get you to buy the set, and I gotta give you the reason why the set exists.
Mhm.
But also, like, I think sometimes they feel stilted to us as adults because we read lots of different things in our personal lives. We watch lots of different stuff. We both have like writing
Mhm.
degrees in like our higher education in some capacity. So I think too, like, we're like, okay, why was this written this way? But a little kid is reading about the Great Depression maybe for the first time, or slavery for the first time, or, the Civil War, and then you get it given to you in kind of like a palatable kid's way,
Mhm.
but it still talks about the hard stuff, to your point. Like, I think that that is
I'm
where they, like, do well because but they're trying to juggle the balance of, like this girl who's like you, who's a different point in time, but also, by the way, here's the history.
Yeah, but I mean, to that point, the fact that, like, if we wanna just be, like, gross about it, like, the books are written as almost like sales pieces for the, like, doll accessories, because it is like, "Oh, and here's the new outfit, here's the doll's doll, here's the horse and the
Yeah.
second horse," like, they are like, if they are simply at, like, the most evil capitalistic level, just vessels to sell you things, they're well-written books, they spent effort on the books, you know?
They're great sales pieces.
Yeah, they're they did well with that, good job, Valerie.
Yeah, good job.
But, but I mean, I even think about, like it sounds, like, silly to say, but I've been thinking about, like, the colonization of America since we finished Kaya, and it's really been, like, bumming me
Yeah,
out, you know?
yeah,
Like, it's just I feel like that last peek into the past for Kaya really, like, struck me with just, like, how and again, we talked about this in the last episode, but I just edited that one, I don't and I noted that I would mention it again, and a lot of times we say we'll mention things again, we don't, so I did just wanna bring it up again, like, I think it's just I think they like, I especially with the Kaya books, I really kind of did appreciate how they ended it with the kind of bleak peek into the past, because
yeah,
I think one thing that kind of is a little bit heartbreaking about the Kaya books in, like, hindsight is, like, they show you this whole rich world, like, with all these, like, hopes and ambitions and, like, this idea of, like, the natural world and everyone meeting and what they do and the cyclical life they live and, like, how everything moves. And then to kind of have the whole peek into the past be about how that whole thing ended, like, 50 years later is, like, very
yeah.
sad, you know?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And it just kind of I hate saying it like this because it's not what I mean, but I feel like there's no other way to say it. But it just, like, it so humanizes a story that I feel like we have been taught as, like, a footnote in American history that's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, and then, like, Andrew Jackson did the Trail of Tears," and, like, we probably wouldn't do that today. It's like,
Yes.
yeah, they it was like a genocide, you know? And, like
Oh, yeah. Well, also, like, when we're taught, about American history, at least, like, in my recollection, I mean, many years ago now for both of us, but
Mhm.
the first time you're taught about it, you start at, like, basically colonization. You
Mhm.
don't start by having a robust or even a middling level understanding that, like, there were people here in North America, there were people in Mexico, there were people across, like, this continent that existed and had decades, hundreds of years of history before a white person showed up and fucked things
Well, that's actually
up.
brings up an interesting question. Do you think it would be more effective for kids in history class? Because at least in my schools, we had, like, mini units on, like, the Mesoamericans and the Native Americans as,
Yep.
like, part of, like, an 1800s unit, you know?
Yeah.
Or, like, I mean, I think I learned about the Aztecs and the Incas and the Mayas only in my, like, Spanish class, really.
Sure.
Um do you think it would be a more interesting way to have history classes if we started talking about, like, ancient tribes and things like that, and then moved to colonization and things like that?
So, yeah, actually, I do think that because I'm sure you were a similar child. I was actually just kinda having this realization in real time as you were just speaking and thinking about how I became interested in stuff as a kid. And, like, I only got into, like, Greek gods and Roman
Mhm,
mythology and all of those types of things, like, those are similarly, like, polytheistic societies with different creation myths and all those things, but we talk about those as, like, fun history, right? But there was also,
mhm.
like, conquering and war and things like that, and I mean, especially with, like, Greeks versus, like, Romans, things like that. I wonder if there would be a reinvigoration in younger people's interest in early American history, i.e., like, indigenous peoples' histories, if we did teach it more from an interest of, like, "Look how fascinating, like, this way of life was that's just not here anymore." But it actually
Mhm.
is, and you can go still engage with it in a very real way by going to, like, a powwow, by going to cultural events, by going to trade shows, and buying, like, from indigenous art like, art from indigenous artists. Like, there's actually very real ways to basically engage with an ancient civilization in
Mhm.
America, like the equivalent that we have here, but we don't teach it that way. We teach it like, "Yeah, and then we kinda killed all that culture, and it's gone now. Isn't that sad?" Anyway.
Well, it's even the argument that people are always like, like, if you're in Europe and people are like, "Oh, well, America's only, like, 300 years old." It's like, no, there's so much, like I mean, you go to, like, Mesa Verde, and it's, like, cliff dwellings from, like, the 1300s, 1400s, like,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
such a kind of westernized view that America is a young country, and
Yes.
I just think it's interesting because it's like, yes, our buildings are, like, buildings that you see maybe 300 years old, but, like, the cultural heritage and the people who were here have been here a lot longer, and, like,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, I always just think it'd be an interesting, like it's not necessarily like the Nez Perce that I'm thinking of, but, like, I know there were some tribes, I don't wanna say which one because I know it's wrong, but I was one of the main ones you hear about, like, Comanche or Apache, who even had a written language and kind of like a government system in place for their tribal system, and I always just do wonder, like, what if we had just, like, stayed in, like, the original 13 colonies, and, like, what sort of
Mhm.
progress would have happened without, like, our intervent or, like, what if we had just actually been good people and traded and just, like, kinda kept, like, you stay your place, I stay mine, even though we took over the tribe land of, like, the Lenape and, like, the Delaware and stuff like that,
Yeah.
what would have happened if we hadn't, like, intervened? And I think just, like, kinda reading Kaya's books made me think about that more because, like, again, like, you learn about Native American culture in schools, and, like, you hear, like, "Oh, it's like the Sioux tribe," and, like, I think like, Sioux's the wrong example because I knew that one was huge, sorry. But it's like, "Oh, it's like the Hopi Indians," and you think, like, "Oh, it's just one group of guys hanging out." But it's like, no, Hopi is, like, a culture that is, like, spanning
Yeah.
kinda like we learned about with Kaya, where, like,
Yeah.
parts of the tribe come together and then they leave, and,
Mhm.
like, you might travel in a band of, like, 30, 40, 50 people, but there are, like, hundreds of thousands of you that will, like, re-meet and convene at different times of year, you know?
Yeah, also that depending on, like, which branches you're part of, your own kind of, like, community dynamic is dependent on that. Like, I think when you're taught about Native American history in schools, because it's so complex and rich, unfortunately, like, the school system is like, "Here's the most watered down possible version of it for you to understand for the
Yeah, and
sake
I
of,
get it.
like." Yeah, of course, but I think it is interesting when we talk about, like, big things like, the Trail of Tears. And then when you talk about it, you're like, oh, this just happened to these people. But then you're like, no, it actually happened to all indigenous people all across America in different ways at different times. So I don't know. It's very interesting.
I
There's so
guess
many lost pieces of, like Americana in like a
yeah,
different way. That's like I sometimes resent when people talk about like America as not having like culture or not
yeah.
having things like that because I'm like, unfortunately, a lot of culture and history has been warped because of colonization. But there's actually a very interesting thing going on in the United States, which is that if you go off the beaten path, you can actually find very interesting pieces of like folklore and history and oral tradition that like is very unique to the United
Mhm.
States because of the ways people came here and the land was conquered.
Well, and I think that's a good point, and that makes me kind of circle back to some other girls, is it's interesting, like, to think about just kind of and this goes into, like, the larger question of, like, anyone who's anti-immigration in the US is basically anti the, like, foundation of the US. Because you look at, like, Kirsten and her story and, like, St. Lucia's Day and celebrating that, and I, like, know people who are from kind of the, like, Midwest, northern Midwest, who celebrate, like, more Swedish, Nordic-leaning styles of
Mhm.
holidays, like and then you go down to, like, a New Mexico area, and it is more of a Hispanic, like, cultural, like, Christmas vibe, like,
Yeah.
I said in Josefina, I have family in Albuquerque, like, the way that Albuquerque decorates for Christmas is, like, incredibly different than the way that, like, Minnesota decorates for Christmas, and, like, the kinda
Mhm.
different traditions they do there are so different, and they're so influenced by, like, what people settled there, like
Yeah.
I'm from, Maryland, and it's, like, one of the it was the original Catholic colony in the United States. It was the one that, like, the Catholics could go to. So there's,
Mhm.
like, a much larger, like, um, German Catholic and, like, Irish Catholic, like, immigrant population in, like, the DC, Maryland area than in other places of the country besides, like, Boston and some other pockets of the East Coast. But it's, like I know this is, like, a silly thing, but one thing that was weird to me moving to Texas was how few Irish bars there were. Like
Sure. Yeah.
every other bar in my hometown, it feels like it's, like, Galway Bay or, like, Galway Tavern or,
Yeah.
like, taverns or inns or things like that, and it is, like, a very historical town too, but, like, I
Yeah.
think here in Austin, we have, like, one Irish bar and it feels fake, whereas the
Yeah.
ones in my town feel like it was, like, it was, like, if it wasn't if it's not, like, a really old bar, it's owned by someone whose family is at least, like, has that sort of, like, heritage in their heart?
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
And it's just, like, I think, like, it's fun to see kind of the different especially I think looking at, like, both Josefina and, Kirsten kind of, like obviously Josefina's not an immigrant because she was, like, born in Mexico and her family
Yeah.
was there, but just kind of, like, the different idea of cultures, like, the Spanish culture, the, like, Swedish culture, and how that, like, still is American culture, and
Yes. Yes.
it's, like, the whole idea too when people and I'm, like, rambling a little bit, but it's, like, when people are like, "Oh, like, American Italian food isn't Italian food." It's, like or, like, Tex-Mex, I'm like, "Yeah, that's actually a new type of food." Like,
That's
that's
yeah.
that's
No,
the
I agree.
culture, is that it's, like,
That
a melting pot of moving things together.
well, I was gonna say, that's always, I think, the thing that I get hung up on is that I'm like, no, America's interesting because of the sort of hybridization of a lot of different like cultures together to create new things.
Mhm.
Like Tex-Mex, like different weird traditions. I don't know, there's just, like, a very cool quality to be like, "Okay, cool. This group of people and this group of people came together and they literally made something new by blending their loves with one another." Even, like,
Yeah.
music, like, the evolution of, like, bluegrass and jazz
Yeah.
and, like, things like that, I think it's just so cool to see historically the way things get influenced over time
Well,
and,
and
like,
that
regionally to your point, so
that's what I kinda like with the books too, is that they take place all in a lot of different places in the US,
mhm,
and, like, you kind of see a little bit of a different culture through that, like, I mean, even, like, going to, like, Samantha and stuff and seeing that kind of, like, highbrow East Coast culture, like, I feel like that seemed, like, kinda familiar to me in terms of just like, "Oh, I know what these houses look like, I know what
yeah,
this here," and same with Felicity because it's Virginia and Maryland, like,
mhm.
those seem like, oh yeah, this is kind of what I like. I know this culture
I've
a little
seen
bit.
this before. Yeah, like, I've
Yeah.
experienced this, like, as an adult too, like, not just like, "Oh, when I was little," like, but you were like if you go back home, you're like, "Oh, I recognize this," like, when we've talked about, like, Colonial Williamsburg or,
hmm
like, the equivalent that's in I can't remember the name, that's in New Mexico.
It's Las Golondrinas.
Yeah, so, like,
Yeah.
the things, like, where you can still go and kind of indulge with these things where the girl we read about would have lived in a similar situation, but now we're, like, also in the modern era. So I think it's I don't know, I
Yeah.
think it's very lovely. It's a lovely little touchstone to all these little parts of our country.
Yeah, and I think it is one of those things we talk about. Like you read American Girl books when you're kind of like probably like one thing I learned in my like master's degree and stuff is like books and TV shows for kids are aspirational. So like the girls might be like 9, 10. You probably read them when you were like 7, 8, you know. You might
Mhm.
have read them, but it's like you want to read about older girls. And I also do think like as a side note it is funny cuz the whole time we've been reading these, the art like they look so old in the art when I originally read them,
Yeah.
and now they're like babies.
Yeah, now you're like, "That's a child."
But it's like, we all like, when we started this podcast because we were always joking about how we would talk with friends about, like, the Dear America books and, like, the American Girl doll books and, like, all these, like, history books that, like, really just enchanted us as girls, and, like, I feel like I love Dear America, and I hope we, like, get to do that when we wrap these, but, like, the American Girl books were, like, what led me to, like, want to read more historical fiction and, like, what led me to, like, read historical fiction as an adult and things like that. So it's just
Yeah.
kind of, like I think there's such a nice entree for, like, little girls into, like, history, you know?
Mhm. Totally. A little sampler platter.
Just a little taste. And then, so, like, we're keeping this, like, short, but I did wanna kind of ask based off that conversation, which girl do you feel like exemplified her historical era the best? Like, which one did you feel the most was, like, lived in?
Hmm. I mean and maybe it's because, I think we sort of have this in our youths in common. I want to say for me, it's still it's Felicity,
Mhm.
but I think because, one, knowing that they were, like, actively working with a place
Mhm.
that, like, still exists today that they can go, that they do, like, reenactments at, I think it had a little bit more of a touch of, like, realness. I also
Yeah.
think she felt like she was literally leading up I mean, and she is, that's how her book ends, into the action of, like, that era, whereas some of the girls felt a little more removed from it, or, like,
Mhm.
like, World War II is happening in Molly's books,
Yeah.
but, she's at home. She's not,
Yeah.
you know, in imminent danger, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying her books would have been better if she was, but,
But maybe
you
they
know
would've.
yeah, maybe they would have, who's to say? I guess I feel like in my head, like, Felicity feels the most like, if I'm thinking of it in terms of if I went to a place in the country, let's say a Colonial Williamsburg, and those books were just written as, like, companion pieces to that little city, I would be like, "Yeah, oh my god, I get it." Like, I could see her running through that little town. I could see her, like, riding her horse. I could see
Mhm.
her, like, hiding in behind where the gunpowder barrels
Yeah.
are and, like, sneaking around. Of course, like, I do have a Felicity bias, but I think, like, she felt very also reminiscent of, like, the way that you get taught about that era of
Yeah.
American history. Um, so her, and then I would say Addie would be my other one, but I
Mhm.
also think that those 2 girls, I mean, are probably 2 of my favorites generally, but they
Yeah.
both just felt very real. The other ones felt less for me like they felt more like a girl who is in this time I'm needing to tell you about
Mhm.
versus, like, I feel like Addie and Felicity's books both do a really good job of making you care about the girl, immersing you in her world, and also feeling like this is a very realistic look at, like, what the vibe might have been like for these girls. So
Yeah.
those are my 2. What about you?
I like that. I feel similarly, but I'm going to say for the same reason you said for Felicity, Josefina. I
Okay,
felt
yeah.
like I feel like sometimes it missed the mark, but in things like we talked about with, like, the Christmas scene and kinda describing what the Christmas, like, tradition was,
Tradition.
I think, like, Valerie did a
Yeah.
really good job of, like, creating, like, you feel like you're there in that scene. Like, I think the
Oh,
ambiance
yeah.
that she creates, and I think kind of she had the benefit of, like, really being able to get really rich into the ranchero life because it was, like, all that a little girl would have done is be on her ranchera. So, like, you know
Yeah.
that area so well, and, like, similarly, they partnered with Las Golondrinas to, like, help advise and
Yes.
create, and so I think that and I think Felicity as well. I think those are my top 2 for it. For
Yeah.
all the reasons you said for Felicity. I think they just and I feel slightly biased with Felicity because Annapolis, my hometown, looks just like Colonial Williamsburg, so it's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I've been in this house, I know what it smells
Yeah.
like." Like, I think one thing I always say is if something smells like spices, it, like, smells like Colonial Williamsburg. So, like, I even know what it, like, smells like there, you
Yeah.
know? Like
There's, like, a visceral element to it for
yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. So that one was, like that's, like, an easy get. That's and,
Well, but I think to your point, I agree again, Josefina and Felicity, they have an added layer of authenticity by having a place grounded in modern day America that you can
mhm.
go and still, like, dip your toe into. I think that is part of the built-in authenticity of both of those books. Of course, like, we read about it, but I think it shows it. I think it's similar to the way that, like, Kaya's books felt a lot richer because we knew there was, like,
A lot
additional
of care.
voices in the room
Yeah.
versus, like, we rag on Molly, we rag on some of the
Kit
quality
a
of the
little bit, yeah.
Kirsten plots and Kit, but all of them, like, they are still sweet girls who we love.
Yeah.
Molly, you know,
Mhm.
uh, all sweet girls that we love, but I can't go visit, I mean, actually, you know what? I'm gonna say this and then I bet somebody will comment, so I'm gonna hesitate on it. I can't go visit, like, a house recreation of, like, a house and what it would look like if it was, like, a family with a soldier off at war, World War II. I'm actually so certain I'm sure it exists. I'm sure
Yeah.
in a museum,
But
there's, like,
but
a
I know
room
what you mean, yeah.
and it doesn't feel right now like that's as, like, impactful as going someplace like, where I can go relive history, right? And, like,
Yeah.
walk on hallowed grounds or, like, when you hear about, like, Gettysburg and then you go walk Gettysburg or right near us, right up the street, the Alamo. You hear about the Alamo and then to actually go and see that, like, largely that mission is
Yeah.
destroyed. There's actually very little of the original foundation of the Alamo left, but you
Mhm.
can still go there and be, like, immersed in the history, and I think having that context for the girls that we both said adds, like, a richness to them that, like, Kirsten, I've said it before, in Minnesota, you can go to the Laura Ingalls Wilder house.
Yeah.
It's a tiny little shit piece of wood in the fucking middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
and it's, like, poorly maintained and, like, barely taken care of, but you are like, "Well, that is a house a little girl lived in, huh?"
Well, it's also I think the thing that Kirsten has slightly against her is that, like, Laura Ingalls existed as a real person who wrote
Oh,
books,
yeah.
and, like, actually experienced it, so it's like, if you wanna read about pioneer times, then you read Laura Ingalls, like, Kirsten's a little
Also,
bit of, like,
yeah.
the Temu version of Laura
Yeah,
Ingalls.
no, high key. Yeah, no, 100%. Also, to your point, like, with Laura Ingalls, like, those books span so many years of her life versus, like, obviously, like, there's dramatization involved, but, like,
Mhm.
with Kirsten, we only get such, like, a tiny
Window.
snapshot. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think she also struggles in that regard. Although, I think my heart is softened to her over time. She's
I
a
think so
very
too.
sweet she's a very sweet girl, but yes, I think there is a suffering of, like, immersion for the
Uh-huh.
girls that, like, I can't necessarily be like, "This is a place I could go." Because even Samantha, like, there's lots of in New England, like, there's lots of houses that are
Mhm.
preserved from those time eras, similarly
Yeah.
to, like, Felicity. Like, you can walk down a street in New York, and there will still be, like, old brownstones from, like, her
Well,
era.
it's kind of what we harped on a little bit with both Kit and Molly, so I'm curious as we get to some other girls is, like, it felt like they were almost too recent to be historical dolls, even though, like, the events are, like, almost 100 years old now, like,
Right.
it's just almost like it pushed you slightly more into an era where we know of certain things, like, there are, like, Molly doing, like, Halloween and things like that. It's,
Yeah.
like which also interesting to think that, like, Kit didn't do Halloween, so Halloween must have become a thing in, like, that 10-year period, you know? Like
Yeah. No, 100%. Especially, like,
but,
I think,
like
like, the commercialization of it too.
it just feels a little bit more like history. I don't know, there's just something a little bit that was, like, a little bit less, like, mythical and, like, putting you in that time period because it's like their houses don't necessarily that might actually be it, that their houses don't necessarily look like your house. They don't look that much different from your house that it's, like, interesting, and the things they
Yes.
do are, like, the things that you do without, like, technology, you know? It's like they
Yeah.
had
They just
childhoods a
don't
little bit
have an
more.
iPhone, but they
Yeah.
could call each other on the phone, or, like,
Yeah.
mail was much more frequent, so you
Yeah.
could have, like or telegrams, right? Like, there were ways of communication the way that, like, we have, like,
Yeah.
just yeah, right, the more analog versions of them, so they do
Well
feel modern, even though, like, right, in theory, they're 100 years old.
yeah, so I'm interested to see when we get to the kind of the newer girls, which I haven't read any of, and I think you've only read one Julie book, you said,
Mhm.
how they feel. And I also am a little bit worried because I do think I have heard the writing goes down from here. So,
That does seem about
um,
right.
I think it becomes more of what we were saying, where it's a vessel for costumes and dolls and things, but
Well, I was gonna say, like, there's always the joke on and I think even American Girl has made the joke now on social, but they have, like, the girl who saw the Challenger explosion.
I can't wait to get to her.
That feels so, like, bizarrely modern. Also that there's 2 twins who are technically, like would have been, like, the early 2000s, like, 9/11 dolls, but they're
But they changed
it's
it.
the
2 twins? Are you kidding me,
I'm
guys? Twin
I'm
dolls?
pretty sure they are twins. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure they purposely picked, like, a time or a year to set the books so that they basically wouldn't
It
have
just
to
misses
do,
it. I think it's like
like, a dress
1999.
uh-huh, like, I'm pretty sure they're like, "We'll walk right up to it, but the Challenger is okay."
That is weird. Maybe too soon, never forget.
It just seems crazy that it's like, "Yeah, she saw the Challenger explosion."
I can't wait. It'll be good.
Huh? Whatever.
Okay. So, I'm
Anyway,
excited to read The New Girls after we take our little, like, movie month.
yeah, again, vote on a good movie, y'all.
Vote on a good movie, guys. The only last thing I wanna say well, 2 things. So, do you wish that the American Girl doll books, much like the Dear America books, had, like, kind of an epilogue in them? Like, do you remember in Dear America, it would have, like, a two-page epilogue that would be like, "This is what happened to the girl after she finished this diary"?
Mhm. Yes. I feel like the thing to me that American Girl doll could do well now is kind of what they did with the Girl of the Year, where, like,
Mhm.
that book's not out yet, but, like, you're gonna learn more about what happened to Samantha once she grew up, right?
Yeah.
And her
That's what I
family
want.
and, like, obviously, like, who she married and things like that. I think maybe not in the books because you can just engage with the doll actively, right? Because like, what if it was like, she grew up and then she died peacefully, right? Like, I don't wanna buy the doll if I know she dies. Right? Like, I mean, everybody dies,
When
but, like
exactly does Kirsten get cholera is the question.
right, like, oh, yeah, what well, we said the end of Kirsten's book, like, I think the reality check at the end of all their books about how basically half the girls would have gone on to live similar lives to us, and then half the girls would have, like, kind of been like, workhorses until they died.
Okay.
Like, it's
Well, it's kinda
that
like
serves
Kirsten's, like, peek in the past and plot, it's like and
yes.
her life would get even harder 'cause
Yeah, her life would be hard, she'd do chores, she'd get married at 14, have 72 kids, and then
and do
die.
more chore.
Cool. Um, but I think something that would be cool is if, like, American Girl would do almost, like, bonus chapters or, like, the way that
Mhm.
sometimes authors will be like, "Hey, I'm never gonna write another full book in this series, but here's, like, a blurb about, like, what I would have imagined, like, these characters' lives would have gone on to look like, as, like, an
Yeah.
almost, like, online way to engage with kids."
Yeah.
I kind of wish they would do that, right? Like, almost like American Young Woman. Like, I
Mhm.
almost wish there was just a bridge to be like, "Okay, this is what they were when they were a child," but, like, because the girls who grew up with the original gens are now, like, in their 20s to 40s,
Yeah.
like, the core demographic, like, late 20s to early 40s,
Mhm.
wouldn't it be kind of cool to be like, "Here's what we imagine Samantha would have looked like in her 30s, and, like, would she have had taken a job? Would she have gone to school?" Yeah, so I think it would be cool, and I think
Like
there's
a
still
Pottermore
room.
kind of?
Yeah, like a Pottermore, like, here's a way you could go engage with it online if, like, you cared enough as an adult, and here's, like, a cute, cheeky way to be like, "Ah, and then the girls did these things. How fun."
I like that. I think that's good. Yeah, I think I would like that too, just because I love epilogues. Like, I love those.
Yeah, they're
And
fun.
one of my favorite ones in Dear America was the Irish Mill Girl one where the girl dies, like, 2 years later. You're like,
Ugh.
spoiler alert, guys. It was, like, the
No, but
saddest book in the entire series anyway. So
well, I was gonna say, I feel like, well, those and then, like, the Royal Diary ones where you'd be, like, so invested in, like, this girl boss, like, woman's life, and then it'd be like, "Yeah, and then she was beheaded." Like, that's the Marie Antoinette one is, like,
yeah.
she's so cunty, it's such a good book, it's so interesting, and then, like, you end it, and it's like, "By the way, like, she's actually really disliked generally by the public, and that's why she was brutally executed in front of, her subjects." What do you think
Well,
about that?
the Anastasia one ends, like, days before her family is, like, executed, like, in, like, a, like, lineup. Like, it literally talks about them being like, "We have to move to, like, one last palace." Like, "They're not letting me bring any of my
Yeah.
stuff, so I'll leave you here, diary, and I'll come back for you." And then it's, like, 4 days later, family was, like, shot.
But then they're always well, and now it's sad because now we know, obviously, that she was also killed.
Yeah, that
Uh,
whole story is terrible if you actually,
but it's
like, deep dive read about it.
well, I think it's so fascinating though that even in our lifetime, like, there was an element of mystery, right, and mythos and, like,
Mhm.
to Anastasia, but then that even in our lifetime, that mystery was solved, kind of the way we've talked about, like, Amelia Earhart and the Kit
Yeah,
books, right?
she
Where it's
did.
like, uh, yeah, like, she's dead. Of course, we want the answers to it, but, like, even, like, all the bureaucracy surrounding, like, trying to find answers for Amelia Earhart because of, like, where her plane went missing and things like that.
Uh-huh.
Like, it's just kind of funny to grow up and sort of lose, like, a level of I think there's a fun that could be
The
had with the
mystery
American
yeah.
Girls. The mystery, 1, yes, and then 2, like, that unfortunately, when you read, like, Dear America or some of the, like, Royal Diaries, like, those were all, like, either taken directly from, like, real people or,
Mhm.
like, heavily inspired by them. It's kind of like also when you read, like, The Diary of Anne Frank, like, you know that, like,
Yeah.
you know the end of the story. So I think there's something that American Girl dolls could do, like, the Pleasant Company could do with the girls to be like, there is no consequence to theorizing what, like, the coolest version of, like, their adulthood could have been because they're not
Yeah.
real people. So, I think there could be something cool, kind of your kind of to complement your point about Barbie, where it's like Doctor Barbie, Astronaut Barbie. Like,
Mhm.
okay, well, like, does Molly go on and be a nurse, a
Yeah.
doctor? Is she, like, inspired by, like, her father coming back from the war? You know, like, I think there's a
Yeah.
cool way you could almost age them up, and then I'm just saying, Pleasant Company, if you're listening,
Which we
you
know
could
you
kind of
aren't.
make them like American young women or whatever,
Yeah.
and like, that way you can engage with them as younger girls, and then having a, like, online version to engage with them if, like okay, well, then what? Yeah, so, I think
I
there's
agree.
cool ways they could do it.
Guys, if you like that idea, then write your bio for your favorite girl in the
Yeah,
comments of
tell
this
us.
episode. We'll come up with some bios too.
You guys do the work. Yeah, next, yeah, we'll have bios.
Yeah, we'll have bios. And then my final question for you at the end of the year, Celia,
Yes.
is do we think Josefina's papa is still the hottest dad in the books now that we've met all dads?
I mean, I feel like my man, my man, my man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, there's just
Retweet.
no beat I just don't think there's any beating him, like, I think yeah, I mean, he's like daddy.
Yeah, he is dad. He's a provider, strong, silent.
Strong, silent, emotional, conflicted, big yearner.
Has his
letter
own
writer.
property.
Yeah, owns property.
Maybe only dad who has property and works at the same time.
Bro, I'm saying also daughter haver. I think that's a great quality.
Girl dad.
Girl dad.
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna marry any type of man and he's kind to his daughters, that's a
Keep 'em.
green flag. Keep them.
I just get frustrated because every time I see on Instagram people like doing polls about who's the hottest dad, Papa's never in it. And I'm like, you guys are missing out.
That seems
Which is
crazy.
good. Give him to us.
Wait, who's leading the ranks?
It's like like Kit's dad's in a lot, which deadbeat. And
That's
then
crazy.
and then who else's dad is in it a lot?
He's not even that hot.
I know. Well, the problem is a lot of them are named Papa. So it's hard to tell who's Papa's who.
Yeah.
Apparently Caroline's dad, the like War of 1812 girl.
He's like on like a boat.
Yeah, he's a boatman. So
Okay,
we'll
I
see.
mean, like that's hot. I know
Yeah.
Julie's dad's a pilot.
Mm.
But I think I think I
people
told you
think-
before. I think Julie is her parents are divorced.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. That's cool. Anyway,
Cool.
yeah, Papa's number 1. I feel like those books were the most romantic books. Not that they need to be because they're for children, but
But they were. Oh, I
they were
miss
for us.
I miss our long con yearn for that. We were so off with kayak with what we thought was gonna happen. And we were so cocky after getting it right.
I really feel still, you know what, you guys, this is my last little soapbox for this era of the dolls. I feel still deeply betrayed and misled by the Kaya books because I would have been most interested in her spirit journey because that is the most foreign element to her life to me that I would have liked to explore more. Whatever, I'll let it go. I can move on. Life is about disappointment. And bracing
It is
for
disappointing though. It
Life
was a
is
crazy
disappointing.
flex in a book to keep talking about something that's never gonna happen in the book.
So I do feel like it was taken away from me. But alas.
But
that
it's
we're
a new year,
New
new
year.
girls,
New girls.
new jokes, new share with
Maybe.
this. Maybe it'll be really serious. Guys, this podcast's about to get real serious.
There's no more laughing next year, you guys.
Yeah, the
okay?
Challenger exploded, you guys. Have some
You guys-
sympathy.
We're gonna have to talk about like modern problems. Because I'm pretty sure
you
like
better
other than
believe
that
we're gonna get upset.
1812 girl, I feel like half those fucking girls are like only like 45 years older than us.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. They're still alive. We're gonna have them on the podcast.
That's what I'm saying. What if we just called Juliet?
What if you just called Julie up? Yeah, Julie's like 60, right? Only
She's 60s or 70s, I think.
70. She's 70, so she'd be like
She's
60
a little
now, right?
hippie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's have her on.
Let's just
All
call
right,
her
anything
up.
else, Celia, before we wrap for the year?
No, babe, that's it.
Okay, guys. Well, thank you for everyone who's been listening. Like I said, we've been doing it for like a year and 2 weeks, which is not that much time. And it's a lot of time too. But we have like way more followers than we thought. We would love more followers. So share this with your family and friends and just share it on your stories
Spread the good word.
as a little Christmas treat for us. Like we want to start doing more stuff, and the more people that listen, the more we're motivated, if I'm being honest. So but we really appreciate all of you who listen, especially you guys who like comment and like really participate in the polls and things. And so I'm just really grateful for all you guys for listening this year. And so we
We
just want
love
to say
you.
thank you. And we'll
you.
see you in a few weeks for our first movie experience. La la la
Movie
la.
time. Ooh la la.
And until then, goodbye.
Bye.
Bright sunny days. If you follow.